Good morning, this is Paul with Denver Decks, and I'm going to be taking a few minutes to talk about architectural columns and the most frequent questions that I get in response to them. So first of all, an architectural column is a decorative column that's installed to cover the actual supports of the deck or the roof. Now, they are going to be wrapped in some sort of a stucco or a stone or a brick to match the front of the house, and they are not structural. We always cap the top with flagstone. It looks better and it prevents moisture from being able to get in, and the flagstone doesn't fade as much. But as far as the actual faces, those are going to be brick, stucco, or stone to either match or contrast the home. Now, they range in cost, and there's the more affordable options where we just wrap a portion of the post, to wrapping it all the way up to the bottom of the deck surface, and then lastly carrying it up through the deck surface, usually 42 inches above. When you do that, obviously you're giving up some of your view. Now, many HOAs around the city do require these, so if you're replacing a deck, they may require that you have these columns reinstalled, or a lot of homeowners, their HOA doesn't require it, they just like the look of it, and if it makes sense to the budget, they're a great option. Now, I wanted to address some of the most frequent questions or misconceptions. So, builder installed decks in HOAs that require these columns, the deck that you currently have will have those columns. And I get these calls regularly from a homeowner. Their deck has failed, it's rotted out, it's builder installed. They typically last 15 years, maybe 18, 20 years, depending on the sun's exposure. But what the homeowner will say is, I want to have my deck replaced, but I want to keep my columns. Now, the problem with that is this: those columns were installed by a builder. Now, a builder, unfortunately, doesn't have the benefit of coming back 20 years later and seeing how moisture was able to get into those columns. So a stucco column or a faux stone column, that's just a material that goes on the outside. Ultimately, those columns are built out of wood. And so what the builder will do is they'll install these columns, they'll run their framing, their decking, and their rails into those columns, which are creating holes or areas for moisture to be able to get in. And once it gets in, it typically gets trapped on the inside, so they get very waterlogged. And so they're not, 9 out of 10 times, those columns are not able to stay. The other reason they're not able to stay is because, unfortunately, up until about 2008, 2009, as we were recovering from the real estate crash, before that point, builders were not putting the code required support posts on the inside. So oftentimes when we open up these columns, either we find no support posts on the inside, the beams are literally just resting on the frame, which is not structural, or we find 2x4s or 2x6s just nailed together. Now, there's a couple of reasons why builders do this. It wasn't legal, unfortunately, when they first built it, but there's a reason why they do it, and I'd love to discuss why that is the case. But just for the sake of understanding the intricacies of architectural columns, if you currently have them and your deck is failing, unfortunately, 99 out of 100 of those columns have to be replaced. Code will not allow them to stay for a variety of different reasons. So unfortunately, that is bad news. But outside of that, in reinstalling them, we know how to build them in a way to where they're fully moisture protected and they're going to hold up the long term. So outside of that, please give us a call to go over any questions, 303-730-9642. Thank you.